Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live stream for the Babysitters Coven. It's so lovely to be here. We were just saying before we came live that these are three people from different parts of the bookish community that I've met in different places along the way. So it's lovely to bring you all together. Quite often I bring people on screen that know each other, but this just so happens that we're all different corners of the book world. So we are going to have a chat. I can't wait to find out what everybody on screen thinks and what everybody in the comments thinks, because some months I get a really clear sense of, oh, this is going to be interesting, or this is going to be a really popular one. I have no idea for this month. Everybody's been quite cagey talking about it online. I've seen people's reviews pop up, and they've not really said that much. So I'm really excited to know what people think of it. Whether it's a polarizing one, whether it's a popular one, we will find out. If anybody doesn't know, I'm McCaw. I'm the author of the Mina books and a YouTuber, TikToker, Instagrammer, just about all the things you can be to do with books. I try to do them to varying degrees of success. So we're going to go around the group and introduce ourselves, and then I'll jump to the comments so people can introduce themselves. As I ask you questions during the chat, I'll ask the people on screen. Please let us know in the comments what you think of the questions too, because then we can all get involved and have a lovely interactive discussion. So I'm going to go around the group. I never know which order you're going to pop up, so I'm just going to plunge in with Andrina. Do you want to introduce yourself? And then we will go around and everybody can get introduced, then we'll get started with the book.
Okay. Hi, I'm Andrina Cordani. I am a crime author. I'm a author of 2 YA thrillers, The Girl Who and Dead Lucky. And I've just started writing sort of twisty, festive crime books as well for the adult crime market. And I'm also a journalist, and I work for national newspapers and magazines.
Very exciting. I love the fact that you have such a specific niche, because I feel like I'm like this with my YA books. Like, I love it. Writing in a niche, I think, is a really good thing to have, because I know we talked about with your thrillers, I think your YA ones were quite kind of broad, weren't they, which is fun. But then you've done the other extreme with your adult, and I absolutely loved it. It's so fun. If people are already thinking about their December TBRs, I'm sure maybe not, but I'll remind people when it gets seasonally appropriate.
Yeah, I'll give back the 12 Days of Murder.
It was so fun. Is that what your next adult thriller is going to be then? Is that a seasonal one as well? I don't know whether you can tell us anything.
Well, take from that what you will.
Okay. We know nothing. We are fully in the dark, but yeah, exciting stuff. Is it coming out this year? Are you allowed to say that, or?
I don't even know. I am working on something, and I hope it's coming out this year.
That's pretty familiar. I know stuff about something that I've written, but I literally know like a 12-month time period that it could be coming out in. So I'm just like, nobody knows about it yet. So yes, this is familiar publishing territory, isn't it? Nobody can say anything.
After the course.
Excellent. Chloe, do you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll go to Kelsey at the end?
I feel like mine is nowhere near as fun. So I am Chloe of Chloe Reads Books, because I couldn't figure out a better name 5 years ago when I started my YouTube. So yeah, Booktuber is pretty much it. I kind of dabble slightly in Instagram, but YouTube is where it's at. Doing it 5 years now and read pretty much anything. So from YA contemporaries to adult steamy romances, and then let's throw in a horror from either end. So really read a bit of everything, and have been doing so for a long time now, and still kicking around here on YouTube. But
I was just thinking that. I was trying to think, like, can I categorize your reading? And yours is like mine. It's kind of everywhere. And I really
literally like everything. Absolutely everything.
Speaking of steamy, I'm reading my first proper steamy adult romance. And I
absolutely love that book. That is one of the best romances ever.
Well, I think I might have peaked, because I said to my friend Mia, I want to read some adult romance. Tell me the best one to read. And she told me this one. And I think it might have ruined me for other ones, because it's so good. I might have just like started with the best one, and then nothing's going to compare. But if either of you, Kelsey and Andrina, can be swayed into, it's really steamy too. Like, some of the scenes, I'm like, I just got to a bit really far through it where I'm quite shocked, and I'm not easily shocked. But
I bought that one because sorry, I was talking over you, Amy. But no, so if you gave me like a top 10 adult romances, that would be on it. And I bought it for my mother-in-law. And everyone was like, you can't do that. And I was like, why? She read it and she's like, I can't believe you bought it. But she loved it. So it's good.
What? I nearly recommended it to my mum and then got to a particular scene and I was like, I don't think I can. Like, I don't tell my mum to read this book. I mean, I might tell her it, but with a content warning of these are the things that they do. If you can cope with that, then read it. Just don't tell me about it. So how about you, Kelsey? Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. It's hard to follow those other two ladies, but I will do my best. I am Kelsey from Slime and Slashers. I'm also a booktuber, but I also, as the name might hint at, I like nostalgia. That's where the slime part comes into it. 90s Nickelodeon was known for slime. I mean, Nickelodeon's still known for slime, but I associate it with the 90s. And so that's how Amy and I know each other. You know, Mina, the series, takes place back in my favorite era, the 90s. So I love that. And if anyone else likes the 90s or just any reading and watching event, I am hosting a upcoming event in April called Old School April and Mina and the Undead. It is going to be a host recommended book. So if you read that book or any book in the series, even the new one coming out soon, you can get an extra point because it's a point-based, like team-based readathon. But the competition angle, it's like just for fun, you know, it's not like serious, like we're going to get you, we're going to take you down to the other team. It's more like fun and making friends and teasing. It's not serious. So don't be
It'd be really funny if it was. Like, can you imagine if people got really, really into it? I mean, that was the perfect timing, wasn't it? Like the third Mina book comes out in April and
I know.
then Old School April. I just saw that and I thought, thank you, Kelsey. Like your timing as ever is just impeccable. Yeah, one of the hosts messaged me and said that my book was going to be picked. So I was like, yay, this is really nice.
Christine from Secrets Reach, it's her host roast. It's her host recommendation.
Roast you.
Books and roast are two separate things. I mean, I like a good roast, delicious, but not the same. Books are delicious in a different sense of the word, but you know what I mean. But anyway, that's me. I just love nostalgia, horror, and Amy knew I voted for this book in the poll, but also it really calls to me because if you look at it, it's just so 90s looking. And I do feel like even though this is taking place in modern times, there are a lot of callbacks to 90s centric things like Buffy. I mean, even it has some Craft, the movie type of feels and vibes, in my opinion. I really love it. And of course, the Babysitters Club. So I don't just like vintage stuff horror wise. I also like vintage, like just regular, any old vintage thing. So Babysitters Club, anything. So this just called to me. I was like, this is like the perfect thing to talk about with others.
Excellent. Well, let's do that. We'll do that as the first question once I've just jumped to the comments to see who is here. And then we'll talk about the 90s feel of it. Hi, Mina. Hi, Kirsty. Hooray! That's really good. It's hard, isn't it, when there's so many readathons. I appreciate people joining in just because every month there's about 8 different ones that I want to join in with, and I just have to be selective. Otherwise, that is all I would read. Hi, Els. I feel like that's a really appropriate name for a 90s sort of feel. Like harking onto the Buffy characters. This is great. We need some more 90s feel to this discussion. I love how everybody just chats to each other too. Hi, Melina.
It's very cute. Love it.
Hi, Paula. I love it. It's just like seeing friends every week. Hi, Vix. Milka said hi, Goddess, then. I was like, that would be weird. Hi, Goddess. You know. Yes. I don't know which person referring to, but possibly Kelsey, maybe. Chloe. I don't know. I know that I've got Nina. I've did Nina to the horror side of discussions. I never know when the comments are coming up, so I just have to guess like which bit of the discussion people like Kelsey knows this, and you do them too, don't you, Clay? Hi, Shelley. Yeah, I mean, what did I put? Oh yeah, actually, I went a bit 90s in what I was wearing too. So, this
Me
is just
too. I'm wearing a tie-dye, and it's the Old School April t-shirt, so it's a tie-dye.
And yeah. I don't know whether you did that on purpose, but I didn't. I think I didn't. In the 90s. We're just still back there, aren't we, Kelsey? Hi, Alicia. And hi, Bethan. Okay, I think we have caught up. So, since Kelsey so nicely introduced it, I think one of my favourite things about this book was the 90s theme. So I will ask you exactly what you thought of it first. But then can you also tell me kind of a 2-part question? So what did you think of it? And what do you think specifically of the 90s feel? Because I realized that I loved looking for the pop culture references in it. I didn't know all of them. I'll be interested when we get to you, Kelsey, if you knew them or whether this is a US, UK thing. But some of the language, like the acronyms, I had to look them up. That could be me being really old. But some of it, like the way they were talking to each other, I was like, this is like code. It's amazing. Like, I'm going to have to sit there with a Urban Dictionary to translate. So yeah, first question then, what did you think of the book and what do you think of the 90s feel? I feel like, Kelsey, you're the kind of prime place to start with this question. So what did you think of it and what did you think of the 90s vibes to it?
I loved when it felt 90s in the vibes. However, I wish it was just set back in the 90s because some of the acronyms that you're referring to, I think threw me off because they're modern acronyms, but mixed in with all the 90s feels. It was clashing for me in some areas, especially in the beginning of the book. But once the magic hit, like the second half of the book, it took off for me. If this would have been trimmed up a little bit, I think, a little bit tighter with less of the beginning with the outfits discussion, even though that was fun. And a lot of it was also retro themed because they're talking about, buying used clothes, from the heyday of clothing. So some of the clothes were vintage clothes they were talking about. But just some of the language was a little too modern for me. And I know that's, of course, to appeal to the modern YA crowd, of course. So that makes sense. But personally, I feel like if it was marketed more like nostalgic, it's marketed so nostalgic heavy already. I wish she would have just leaned into it all the way, personally. But overall, I enjoyed it. I was teetering on a 3.5 for the longest time. I ended up giving it a 4 because I loved the ending. I loved the climax. And when we started to get into like the babysitters and how it was so Buffy-like, like that was my favorite part. It was like, okay, this guy's definitely Giles. Like this is definitely supposed to be like the Slayer, but it's the babysitters. It was so cute. I loved that. So I know people might think that's a little cheap to play into the nostalgia, but I like that when it's done well. And I thought it was done well in the second half of this book. I just wish she would have leaned in fully to it and just placed it in the 90s. I think then I would have been, really, really happy, but I'm biased. So if anyone else disagrees, that's okay.
I mean, I'm biased too, being that I sat through books in the 90s, but I did have the same thoughts. I think whenever this happens, whenever there are 90s references in a modern book, I do start to think that this is like an author in her 30s like me who's written a book like referencing stuff that she likes from the 90s. So if you want to do that, I kind of think set it in the 90s. I do think that would have got the Babysitters Club vibes going even more, and the Buffy stuff, like it could have been current for the books. And I think it was really good. I enjoyed it, but I did have the exact same thought as you, Kelsey. I started not knowing if it was 90s or not, and then as soon as I got to mobile phones, I was like, oh, okay, it's not 90s, and I did feel a little disappointed. So maybe that is just an us thing. I'll be interested to hear what the other two less 90s oriented people think of the proceedings. Kelsey, how about you, Chloe? You're nodding along with us.
Yeah.
What did you think of the 90s feel?
I think I'm in a really weird place. So I was still a toddler when the 90s ended.
Oh, I thought this was going to come up in the discussion. I'm going to make everyone give their birth dates, don't worry, but Chloe has definitely just like made the rest of us feel old. So,
yeah. So I mean, I could walk, but that's about it when the 90s ended. So the 90s nostalgia for me isn't quite there. I do appreciate it, but I don't have any memory of that. So it's more like, oh, this is fun, but I wasn't looking into things too much. Like I actually wrote down, I've got my notes, and I said, I bet Amy loves the Buffy references because I personally don't really care, but I still like understood that that's what was happening. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I just said it was a personal attack. It's fine.
But yeah, so it was more like, oh, I feel other people would really care about this, but I personally don't. But I'm not saying it's a bad thing. But it does kind of link into exactly what Kelsey was saying. So I was teetering on a 3.54, and by the end of it, I did decide on a 3.5, and quite a lot of that is because of the acronyms. So I, again, was a teenager. I won't tell you when, but not horrifically long ago. So all of the acronyms, I read them like as I would read them. So I'm like, oh, okay, like I know exactly what all of these are. But it felt to me like, let's just say, as you said it, a lady in her 30s who loves the 90s, who is trying to write to appeal to teenagers. And I am not convinced. I don't know every teenager. I'm not convinced they still talk like that. So I was thinking it had an edge of cringe to me. I think at one point it said he gave a FML-ish sigh. And I was like, just because you can't say the F word, like we all know what that F means.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, as I was like, okay, I know what that is. But I'm like, I don't think teenagers actually talk like that anymore. I could be wrong.
Also, I don't think they speak out loud the acronyms very often. Like, it was almost like there were times where they were speaking it to each other, and I was like, they're not texting or instant messaging or whatever. They're instant messages. That dates me. People don't do that anymore, but you know what I mean. They're not texting. They're flipping talking. So I was like, do kids today really talk like that? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but
that's where I was like, I don't think they do. So part of that like drew me out of it a little bit, thinking she's trying to be a little bit too appealing to teenagers. I understand. I think it was 2019 this was published. So in 5 years may have changed. But I was not long out of being a teenager in 2019, and I definitely didn't talk like that. So, but yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it. I think it was really fun. I actually giggled at parts of it. So I did enjoy it. I think if I would have read it at, say, 14, 15, 16, I would have thought this was like one of the best books that I'd read at that time. Looking back, I appreciate it's YA. I'm no longer 14, 15, 16. I did enjoy it, but I didn't love it.
It's an interesting thing lately. I'm finding this more and more, like certain YA books still grab me as an adult, and then other ones I feel that they are written for that teen audience, and like you feel yourself being left behind it a little bit. Like I think that's exactly what you said, Chloe. Like I think me at 13 would have thought like Buffy, Babysitter's Club, this is amazing, and it would have been the real 90s then too, you know. I wasn't a teenager in the 90s, but I was old enough to read books like this. I probably would have picked up a book like that. How about you, Andrina? I'm not going to ask if you're a teenager in the 90s.
I was a teenager in the 90s.
I thought you might have been, but you know, I didn't want to make. I feel like you look like Andrina. I assume you're younger than me, and then like we've had this discussion before, and like it's the other
way. Really old. But yeah, so I can sort of report on the 90s feel and everything, and the same as you. When I got to the first mention of a phone, I'm like, oh right, okay. And Chloe, I'm really glad you said that about the dialogue, the in acronyms in dialogue. It was just like sometimes I just thought it's actually taking her longer to say the acronym than it would have taken her to say the words. And I understand like people say things like BS if they're very well brought up American kids and they don't like to swear, but they don't say I weigh KYK or something. You don't say that when you're talking out loud. But yeah, so that I did. It did, like as a YA author, and you, Amy, you probably have this as well, although you're writing in the 90s, you have this line you have to tread where you make the teenage voices sound like current and appealing to teenagers that are reading now, but at the same time, you start throwing peng about, and that's when it gets really embarrassing. And it's like really hard to try and to tread that line. But for me, I don't, like you, Amy, I don't give star ratings. I keep track of my books on Goodreads, and I just give everything pretty much 4 stars because I just hate picking star ratings, and it's hurtful to the author, and it's really reductive. But I would say, like, I really enjoyed it. Like you said, Chloe, the last half of the book is really flies. I wish that the pace had been set at the beginning. So you've got this brilliant, creepy beginning where there's a David Bowie lookalike creeping around a house and trying to steal a child, and the child's standing on the, on the rooftop, and it's super creepy. And then you've just got high school for like a really long time. And actually, I think I learned more about American high schools by reading this than I have like in the last years of pop culture that I've been consuming, because there's so much detail. And I actually just wish there'd been some creepy little markers to flag up, like, Brian behaving oddly, maybe the coach, or, maybe like arranging some cushions or something to give a clue that he's not just a brainless football coach. And then, or, just sort of something, some sort of creepy signals. And also I think there were other signals, like, for for example, we know that Cassandra's a bit amoral, and would have been nice to kind of, I'm assuming that might have come out in some of the other books, and it would have been nice to explore that a bit more and because that sort of brings back the craft kind of vibes, where you've got like where she's talking about the potential of having all of that power. And obviously the synod are going down. So you can see all the stuff being set up for the next book, but I think it just took a long time to warm up for me. But that last, the last bit was really good when they're finally working as a team. And, when you've got Janice, Janice was absent for a big chunk of the time, and I quite liked her and I wanted to have more of her. So yeah, that was kind of my overall feel. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, but I do feel it could have done with a bit of editing and a bit of like just breadcrumb trails of like, this creepy stuff is to follow. There's some fun supernatural stuff coming up.
Yeah. Would you read the next book, all of you? Like, how about you, Kelsey? Would you pick up the second one?
As I said, I really enjoyed this. I agree with everything that everyone else is saying. If it only had been a little tighter. However, the way the pacing left off at the very end, it does leave me eager to pick up the rest. But I say that I'm not very good with continuing on with series. I'm notoriously bad. So I want to, but it's not like one where I'm dying to know. But of course, I think I would enjoy it. I would pick it up if I was in a bookstore and saw the second and third books. I'd be like, oh yeah, sure. And I love the covers, so I would love to physically buy them, because beautiful cover, as I mentioned before, and all of them, because I've seen them on Goodreads, all of them have great covers for the entire series. I want to read it, but who knows when or if I really will read the rest. We will see.
I think because sorry,
what were you going to say, Chloe? Do you think
I jumped straight in on top of you. I keep doing that. I'm so sorry. But my TBR is crazy. So I have to kind of judge if I'm going to continue a series on, will I ever get through these books? Am I going to prioritize that above it? And I think if I was to see the next book in the library or in a charity shop or something like that, I'd probably grab it because I've read the first one. I liked it, didn't dislike it at all. Yeah, go on, I'll grab it. I don't think I'd go out of my way to get it. I think that's where kind of my rating sits of, I'm not going to seek it out, but if it happened to fall into my hands, I'd give it a go.
For me, it was the mom. I think if her mom had ended the book and been okay, I would have probably been okay, felt at peace, but I don't feel at peace with how it ended with the mom. It made me really sad.
That was so sad. That was one of the things that pulled at my heartstrings the most, was the mom. And, getting that glimpse of her actual personality, which Esme never really got to know for her entire life. Like, that was one of the most relatable parts and the most real parts of the books. Like, the acronym's one of the biggest criticisms, but I think one of the biggest positives is that relationship with her mother, that glimpse into what her mother's really like, and the teasing of the exploring of that further, and just the heartbreak of, I only had her for like flipping a few hours, back to, the way I wish she always was. So I'm with you. That does kind of leave me wanting more, but like Chloe's saying, I wouldn't rush out and go out of my way to get it, I don't think, just because I'm so bad with series in general.
I feel this, even as an author who writes series, as I'm sitting here nodding, thinking, yeah, it's really hard to pick up another book in a series. How about you, Andrina? Do you think you would rush to pick up the next book in this, or are you kind of in a similar situation to the others?
Well, I mean, when you said, Chloe, about, if I happened to cross it in a library or a charity shop, and I had to move hell and high water to get this book, I ordered it from 2 different places and and then when it did turn up, it's actually someone's ARC that they've sold on, and so it seems to be quite hard to get your hands on this series in the UK, which obviously makes it harder. I'm not sure I'd sort of go to these sort of massive efforts to get the book. I was just looking at the sequels actually on Amazon and thinking, I'm kind of curious to know what happens, because there's this thing with the Synod, the sort of Watchers Council equivalent, where they're clearly like, they've made a few slightly unfair decisions in the past. There's also like the thing of Cassandra definitely has the potential to go rogue. And the mum definitely needs a rescue. So, I think there is stuff that's interesting to me, but I don't think I'm so compelled that I really must go out there. But I think actually there is a chance that book 2 might be pacier because you just kick straight in there and you've got this group dynamic, and the group dynamic was what I enjoyed at the end. So yeah, if I could get my hands on it, or if I could just get it on my Kindle or something like that, then I would probably go for it. But I'm not sure I want to order something from the States and wait for 4 weeks again.
Yeah, I think if I see it in Forbidden Planet, because I know that is where I picked up my first copy, I think that they stocked them. So if there does happen to be one in London Forbidden Planet, I think I'll grab it next time I go. But it is there are a couple of nuggets of things that I do want the follow-up on. And I think I'd judge it on a book-by-book basis. I'd probably read book 2. Whereas some series, I will go out and like rabid buy the next 5 books, even though I've read 1 page of book 1. I don't have that like strong urge with these ones. Let's jump to the comments and see what people think. And then I really want to know from all of you if you predicted the twists in terms of this one or not. Yeah, it's such a good era. And I mean, Nina's a little bit younger than us as well. So Nina's got this kind of nostalgia, wasn't a teenager during that time. Yes, I mean, it is excellent t-shirt. Yeah, they were Shelley. Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not a fully grown adult now or anything. Definitely not.
No, like 5 years ago, you're 7. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's how I feel actually about Friends kids. Like, it terrifies me. Like, Shelley has a full grown adult now. Like, not, I don't know how old your kids are, Andrina, but do you just like blink and like I've blinked and all of a sudden I've got a 4-year-old? It's terrifying.
Yeah, no, they're not as grown up as Shelley's, but I think Shelley and I are kind of similar ages. But yeah, I mean, Chloe, if you were a toddler in the 90s and you spent the whole of the 90s basically, staggering around, falling asleep, sleeping most of the time, maybe occasionally throwing up, then actually most of my friends probably did the same thing in the 90s.
Yeah, I'm not going to make any comments about my early 2000s. That would be a different conversation. Oh, that's really good, Paula. See, there were a couple of other people who I saw their reviews where it just hit the sweet spot for them. And like, I think in theory it would have done for me, but it just didn't quite on the page do it too. Yeah, the lingo. What? This is it. If it's making Nina feel old, we've got a problem. Yeah, I mean, Shelley is like Queen of Point Horror Book Club, which was actually written in the 90s predominantly and published in the 90s. And yeah, I think it would have benefited from that feel as well. It did. I was going to ask this question, actually. I don't think I put it on the list. Did you all feel like the characters were about 12 and then realize that they were sort of 15 or 16? Kelsey, what did you think of that? Because I was really surprised when I was like, she's having driving lessons. Like, I know you drive a little younger in the States, but not that much younger.
Oh no, I mean, well, I was a late bloomer in all kinds of ways, but I also learned how to drive late. But no, they read very young to me. But again, I think that was part of the issue with the dialogue, with the acronyms, because I just don't fully believe that people are out there talking like that at 17. I believe they text like that. I just don't believe in like real life. They're just going back and forth with abbreviations. I could be wrong. My friends and I have like a group chat and we're all around the same age. So in our 30s, close to 40s, some older as well in our chat. We always joke about like lingo today because some of them have kids and they're like, oh, they said this word and that word. And I was like, what does that even mean? But they're not acronyms. So I still don't 100% buy into that. That's accurate to how young people speak. But I think that's what really drove it home about the reading young. Also, the reason I think it would have benefited being set in the 90s, because I have an easier time believing that a 16, 17-year-old is babysitting in the 90s versus, for some reason, I just don't buy into that as much for young people today, like a 16-year-old today. I just have a feeling that they're more about hanging out with their friends, working at the mall. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not of the age group this is really meant for, but I just don't see it. And I think I just could have bought into it easier, I guess, with the setting being changed, because I think people were 16 or 17 but seemed younger in the 90s. And now I feel like every young person seems older to me. They're almost as mature as me, and I'm like, what the heck? Like, I still feel like a teenager. They seem older than me. So I don't know. I guess it's a dichotomy of how how to answer that, but I think it did read young overall to answer your question.
I did spend a lot of the time thinking I would not leave my child with these people. Like, I don't know. Like, particularly the main character talking about what a good babysitter she is, and yet the child ends up like, not necessarily her fault, but I'd rather my child wasn't dangling over the edge of the roof, when somebody's babysitting them. So it's a no from me using teenage babysitters. This is just like for me. How about you, Andrina? Did you think it read quite young?
I think it did. I think that was deliberate. I think that they were aiming for that readership group. Because if you're writing it for a 14-year-old and you're reading it, they're actually, I vaguely remember a reference, they're actually 17 girls. So because she was saying how she's left driver's ed late. So I think it did read young to me. Sorry, I had one of those brilliant observations on the tip of my tongue, which has gone now. Sorry.
We'll get to Chloe. No, that's fine. This happens with these all the time. It's so difficult to keep it in your mind when other people are talking. And Chloe, I think you're closest in age, so you can confirm for us. Like, did it read like these people weren't 17? Because it's not that long since you were 17. Like, did these people?
It was still a decent amount of time since I was 17. Yeah. But no, I think overall I kind of disagree, actually, which is weird because I was reading it and thinking that they didn't quite feel, maybe not 17, but maybe 15-ish. Yeah. And I just felt it was easy to read rather than like young to read. But again, I just had something really good on the tip of my tongue and it's gone. No, I've got it. With the outfit styling, that part to me really brought them up in age, because when I was 14, am I choosing I can't put a fully put together outfit on now. It's still so basic. So that part kind of read to me where like the 2000s nostalgia comes in, of like Clueless, and they have got the full outfit planned and everything. That kind of gave me those vibes. And I pictured them as like Cher, and her friend's name has gone from my brain completely. Yeah. But with their perfectly styled outfits and everything. So that made them, even though they were kind of acting young, being able to fully put an outfit together bumped them up a couple years. Yeah.
I will say I can't even do that today. So
no, I can't as you said.
Does your look not have a name?
No. Oh yeah, like, and some of them I really like had to take a minute and wonder what she was talking about, because the Wino Forever one, like I totally forgot, like the Johnny, that was like a few steps of like pop culture reference, isn't it? Because I was like, okay, Johnny Depp had a tattoo that said Winona Forever and then changed it to Wino Forever, right? So at first I thought she was dressing as a wino, and then I was like, that's really weird, like I don't understand this. And then I realized it was meant to be Winona Ryder, but as via Johnny Depp's tattoo.
I didn't even get that. No. I was thinking that she was just dressing casual like a wine mom, like a mom who likes wine.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. But I didn't.
No, what you said makes sense.
She mentioned, her friend mentioned Winona Ryder later and said, like, you can't do another Winona Ryder look. And I was like, which other Winona Ryder look did she do? And then I went, oh, was that the Winona Ryder look? So, and I'm fairly good with 90s pop culture. Like, I know my stuff. If it took me a while to get that one, and like most people on screen apparently didn't, like, it's very niche, isn't it? And I think maybe that's why some people really loved it, because it just tapped into the exact little bits of the 90s like that they wanted. Yeah, that's good that it made you want to pick up the next one. And yeah, I think I probably do, but I'm not desperate. No, it's a bit of a hard pill to swallow when you realize how long ago the 90s was. You know, 25 years. That's scary. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like it's funny. My nephew is in his mid-teens, and sometimes he uses the same words that we did, like the exact ones. And I think things have not moved on. And then he says something else, and it is like a foreign language. And I think, okay, I'm not. And also I laugh whenever anybody says peng, because my son's penguin is called Peng. And when he first said it, I was like, I didn't know that this was a thing. Otherwise I would have like convinced him out. And I mentioned it to somebody at work who's really young, and she was like, no, you probably don't want him to call you his penguin that, but the damage is done now. Like, I have a house full of pengs. So yeah, I mean, oh, do you know what? I wanted that for her as well. Like, I think maybe, I wonder if you can learn it. Like, I don't think you can. It feels like you need to be one of the chosen ones. I got the chosen one vibe. Like, I think poor Janice has like missed her opportunity.
But then they took her memory away. That was
Yeah, I
awful.
know.
No.
So sad.
I'm always sad about memory wipe stuff because I feel like it is a little bit of like an easy like rewind. Things like Stargate Atlantis would do that. It's like they've gone through some earth shattering, like a character's died, and then they just rewind time for 12 hours and everything's fine. Yeah, it seems to be a perennial problem. I'm going to write standalone books in future, I think. Oh, that's good. See, yeah, the voice did grab me as well. Like, it felt like a real teenager. But then I think the beginning grabbed me. I had the same issue as you, Andrina, that it felt very detailed about high school. And high school, I know high school can be hell and what have you, but not the kind of hell I was looking for. So, yeah. I do think I'll get the second book, but I won't rush. Yeah, it was really, it felt really sympathetic to me because it's such a difficult subject matter to tread, isn't it? Because there will be some kids reading this and having family members where they can relate in like a non-magical sense. Like they'll have somebody who's like losing parts of their personality, and it's really sad to think about. So I thought the fact that she went there was really bold and done really well. Oh, that's interesting, Andreas. I quite like that, going into a book and not knowing. Yeah, that's good. That's kind of how I felt about it mostly, I think. And I think being a Buffy fan definitely helps with this one. Yeah, it did actually.
Yeah.
Like it was a season 1 where I think you said something about that, like that, Andrina, where it felt like it was a setup for the rest of the series rather than it being able to stand on its own 2 feet. I remember I was always told writing a series, like, make the first book, like the second one, you can kind of tease a third, but make the first book feel like it's its own story. And I tried to do that in mine. Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah, I like the series. And this one does feel comforting. That's a good word for it, Melina, definitely. Yeah, it was a bit, I can't think of it. It did feel like it desensitized me a little bit. I think that's the word I was going for, because they did just one after the other, like slither out. And it might have been nice for them to have had the opportunity to fight a little bit. Can I just say I really enjoyed, was he called Kevin? I think it was, because I'm married to Kevin. I quite enjoyed Kevin the monster, where they like were doing their practice on him, and he was like a grumpy old man monster. Like,
But I think we needed more monsters before. I think if there'd been more monsters before, like just a few things slithering around in alleyways or something, then the big denouement with all the monsters coming through one after the other would feel more like an escalation.
Yes. Yeah, it did go from like slimy Kevin to just whoa, everything.
Yeah.
And you know, fun in its way, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I find star ratings too difficult just because I can't like rate it evenly. Like, I think some things were 5 stars about this book, and some things were, you know, objectively, I don't know, 2.5 stars. So like, where do I put that? And like Andrina says, I've got the author thing where I know that if I see somebody's giving me 4.5 stars and I'm in the wrong mood, I just really want 5 stars. So, like, this is, you know, I know that logically that is a ridiculous thing to think, but, you know, we are delicate, fragile people putting our words into the world. So
flowers. We were crushed easily.
Honestly, Kev used to send me loads of 3-star reviews, and I was like, if you see a 3-star, please don't send it to me. I know that means brilliant to some people, but I just don't want to know, because it doesn't mean brilliant to me.
I've never ever looked at my Goodreads, and I've never ever looked at Amazon. On my publication day of my first book, when The Girl Who came out, at the end of the day, because it had been such a lovely day of people sort of saying congratulations, I had a look on my NetGalley ratings. I read 1 2-star review, and then just like everything crumbled. I'm just too delicate. I can't take it.
NetGalley really is the bad place, though, because people can request books and read them for free, for anybody who doesn't know. And generally they just request random stuff. So all my NetGalley reviews just say things like, I don't like vampires or YA books. I downloaded this one and I didn't like it. Like, how dare it? And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to start reading it. And a couple of them said, like, I don't like YA horror. I don't like mysteries, 2 stars. And I was just like, okay, I'm not going to look at NetGalley anymore. This is the bad place. So yeah, my publisher said, "Do you want your second book to go on NetGalley?" And I was like, "No, my self-esteem can't go with NetGalley."
Oh my
The
God.
late 1900s. No, that's so bad.
That's awful.
I think it hit home for me where I was put on a historical fiction panel because my books were written in the 90s.
Oh
like,
my God.
That had a little bit of like a
Yeah.
gut punch feel.
Crazy.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I do. I think that was one of the best things about the book for me, anyway. I mean, you're not that old, Vix. Come on. But yeah, I think it's that, isn't it? You were one of the people, Vix, that I was thinking of that really loved it in your review, and it's just really nice, isn't it? That for every book, like we all obviously really enjoyed this, but for every book that we really enjoyed, there's somebody who absolutely loves it, and that's the great thing about the book community. Like, there's so much variation and stuff. I know the late 1900s. Oh. Yeah, I know. I mean, I love it when a Kevin turns up in popular culture, and I haven't actually broken it to my Kevin that like a slimy little grumpy monster was his namesake in this book. I'll have to explain Kevin afterwards. Yeah, I'm not married to the slimy Kevin. I'm married to the human one. Yeah, I mean, Kevins are great. Shelley is married to a lovely Kevin as well. Like Catherine Webber is married to a lovely Kevin. They stood together at a book event once, and we were like, "Oh, look, all these Kevins we married. Didn't we do well?"
Aw.
I've never met more than 3 Kevins, and they were just all in the same room. It was quite cool. We tried book roast cow. Oh, I read that as cow pile. I'm sorry, my console is so dry. Does that say core pile? I was like, what is a cow pile? Okay, you can rate across different aspects. That sounds good. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think
that makes more sense. Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
and changing ratings is definitely a thing because I do sometimes read a book and then years pass and I look at what I rated it on Goodreads and I'm like 5 stars. Like, what place was I in that I gave that book 5 stars? I think sometimes like your tastes just change and you learn things about the world and you realize that you were a bit naive. Yeah, I think that is going to be the takeaway of this discussion. The 90s are now called the late 1900s.
That is sad. That is sad as hell.
Century. Yeah.
Okay, so what I really want to know is, did you predict that the boyfriend love interest, whose name I've forgotten, and as I mentioned, I sent my book to Andrina, so I don't have it to check. I've forgotten his name. But did you all know? Did you all know that he was the bad egg? Because as soon as I met him, I was just like, this is a 90s themed book. The boyfriend is going to be responsible. And then, of course, he was involved. What did you predict that, or is that just a me thing? Chloe, what did you get there with that? Or
yeah, so I was actually making notes like as I was reading. So I knew straight away that we didn't quite trust the coach. Even though he turns out to not be a bad egg. I was like, there's something fishy with the coach. He's involved. And I think I got that like as soon as she was going to her PE or gym class or whatever they were calling it. I was like, yeah, he's fishy. And then I think I didn't quite pick up on the boyfriend being bad, even though I should, because I've read a hell of a lot of books. But I didn't get it straight away. And then I think I got it. The first time they were like hanging out, I was like, oh, this is so cute. It's a little romance. I'm so happy because a book has to have a romance in for me to enjoy it. We just need a slither of we like this. But then I think it was like the second time they hung out and it was just the two of them. I kind of got a straight, I'm not 100% that hyped on them being together. So I think I don't trust him. And then as soon as we had the first interaction with the coach that he wasn't actually a bad guy, he's trying to help them, I wrote down, wait, do we not trust the brother? And that was
excellent.
Probably like 2/3 of the way through, but so I got it before you were told, but still not quite at the start. But I was like, wait, I don't think we trust him anymore. And then I put never mind, and then there's an arrow, no, maybe. So I did bounce around a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the author. Like, I try and sort of spot certain authors' tells, and like, say, Karen McManus, I feel like I know now, like, that it's going to be some sketchy older character, usually. Like, there were a few in a row like that. And then the boyfriend is generally my fallback choice. Like, if there's a boyfriend who's too good to be true, I usually think that they're not going to be. And I'm married to somebody lovely, but I just assume that boyfriends are going to be evil. And that's the Buffy thing, isn't it? Like, your boyfriend can turn evil and try and destroy the world. So, yeah, I think I was thinking the Buffy thing, but, like, he could... he wasn't bad in the way I expected. I didn't really think about the fact that his dad could be involved. But I did suspect him. Did you, Andrina? Did you do the author thing of like ruining it for yourself? Because I feel like I do this a lot. I try and unpick a book and then I'm like, oh, why did I do this? Why did I pull all the threads of this book?
Well, 2 red flags. The first red flag, I mean, obviously you had the brother and sister slagging each other off, but the brother started going on about, I found my dad's diaries, and it turns out, that she was, everything was all about her and my mom, and she was so self-centered, and my sister's like that too. And I'm like, that feels a bit manosphere. And the second one, obviously, if a dog growls at him, he is not a good egg. And, it threw me off because the dog also growled at the mum earlier. And I was thinking, oh, no, because I did not have a shadow of a doubt that the mum was, a nice person underneath the spell. Not that I knew it was a spell, but yeah, as soon as the dog starts growling at him, I'm like, no, he's definitely not. He's going to turn. But yeah, I didn't suspect the dad thing at all. So when he pops up and it turns up, he's like, and that's another thing they could have maybe set up earlier, is this whole red magic.
Yes.
People trying to sort of steal the powers and going evil kind of thing. Like, I think that if it had been woven in earlier, it would have been. It didn't have to be even that obvious. Just a little mention would have been good.
Yeah, the fact that the power could be corrupted and it wasn't kind of as pure, and because it was presented as quite kind of pure and innocent, wasn't it? It would have been nice to see that there was a potential for a flip side of that. How about you, Kelsey? Did you see the twist coming?
I kind of mirror, Chloe's experience, especially. I first suspected the coach. I was like, he's a little too interested in how she's doing in school and this and that. And I was like, this is suspicious. I did not assume anything was wrong with the brother at first, until he started talking about the sister, and the sister was like, yeah, he's shady. I was like, something's amiss there. So at first I thought one thing, just like Chloe, and then I started to get the hints, but I wasn't really about figuring out who. I wasn't super invested in figuring out, oh, there's somebody's evil here. I just kind of wanted, when's the crazy witchcraft stuff going to happen? I just kept waiting for that more than anything else. I was like, where's the witchcraft? Then once it hit, I just was there for the ride. So it wasn't really about trying to figure out, who might be a bad guy or not. Except I did have the thoughts about the coach, especially very early on. But once that witchcraft hit, I was like, yes, I'm here. And I just went with it.
Let's jump into the witchcraft. Sorry, Kev's just choking in the corner. You all right there? Yeah, he's all right. He's not actually choking. I really enjoyed the witchcraft, and I have to say the same with the other stuff to do with the mum. The fact that the mum had been collecting random objects, and then it turned out she'd been collecting them because they were spell things. I was like, oh, that was another punch in the chest there. What did we think of the magical system in this book? Do you want to start us off, Andrina? Were you a fan of the way that this book did magic?
I thought it was really different. It was very easy, almost too easy, but I did like the whole kind of modern items. And I just love that explanation towards the end about the books updating themselves.
Yeah, that was so clever. I wondered how they were going to do that.
It says you've got to get a strawberry vape capsule.
Yeah. Yeah,
but,
that was.
I thought it was fun, and the thing I liked about it is picturing myself reading it as a teenager, as a 13, 14-year-old, and thinking I can get all that stuff. It just sort of makes it a bit more tangible as a reader. So yeah, I did like it.
I think me and my friends would have totally done that, all been reading that book and then had a sleepover where we'd got all the objects together and tried to do the magic with it. And there'd have been that one friend that was like, I'm doing it, look at my magic spell. So yeah, I think that was a really fun, kind of almost interactive aspect. I totally would have, as an adult, I was almost tempted, but I didn't do it. How about you, Chloe? Did you like the magical system?
I loved it because as soon as I'm getting into witchy or fantasy kind of things, if a system's too complicated, I struggle. I really go, I don't know what's happening here. I don't understand. This was so simple that it was funny. And I really did enjoy it. And I definitely would have been that teenager. I'd have seen the list and gone, I can get these things. I'm here for it. And just the amount of different things they could do as well. And it was so simple. And they've said the spell once. They now have this magic power. That was pretty cool. But it was her dog, Pig. talking to her.
Yeah.
That I was genuinely chuckling. I'm like, this is crazy.
I love that.
Yeah, we've not got this huge system and all these candles need to be lit in a certain order, and there's not this like crazy amount of Latin we need to recite. It's just, I've made my dog talk by accident. This is funny. So I did really appreciate that. So I felt like it was very easy for the actual like teenage audience to read it, not be confused to what's going on, but think it's pretty cool. So I did really like it.
I'd forgotten about the dog. That was like one of my high points of the book, because I really loved how she wanted like really deep answers and clues, and the dog's just like, food walkies, please. Like, take me for a walk now. Like, no, I really want the secrets to the universe. And the dog's like, no food, no snuggles. Really good. How about you, Kelsey? I mean, clearly you'd do spells on your pets and stuff, but what did you think of the magical system?
In a second, I would do a spell on my dog Jackson to figure. Even if he would just tell me, "I want breakfast, I want food," I'd be like, "That's fine. I just want to hear you talk." I thought it was fun. I do wish I like the simplicity, but I also wish I could understand. So you get all these items, you put them in a pile. Does it matter? Like, I know I'm specifically thinking of the scene near the end where she's trying to make the girl she's babysitting forget who. The dog was one of my favorite characters, the mom, and the girl who gets accidentally kidnapped. I loved her. She was so mature for her age. She was just like, I'm just going with it. And then to make her forget, I was so bummed. I was like, come on, I want her to like just keep that knowledge somehow. But anyway, she just dumps all the stuff in the bed real quick and says the words and it works. And I'm like, you don't have to like make sure all the items are touching, or I just wanted like one more detail about the items. Like, do they have to be close together in a circle, whatever. And that's being nitpicky, but I liked the simplicity overall though. And I didn't have any problems with it. I just thought it was a good time.
Yeah, very, very true. I just had images of me like saying, Mom, can you get me a strawberry babe catchall? And him being like, what are you doing? I'm just going to do that in my room to try and make the dog talk. I had a really dopey black Labrador growing up, and I feel like he would have just been like food, sleep, and that's all I would have got out of him. Yeah, Billy vibes, definitely. And I love how I know that you mean Billy from Scream. I'm pretty sure you do. Yes, I mean, that is always the clue, isn't it? Although I do always think that about Mina, like she moves into New Orleans and suddenly like the murder rate skyrockets because like, she's got main character energy, so she brings all this chaos. I think she even says that in one of the books, like, does everybody think that like I'm involved in this? Definitely, yes, yeah. Scream boyfriend vibes. Yeah, same. I kind of assumed with Esme's mom that something had happened to her, like a spell had gone wrong or something, and she was just gone. I thought it was even sadder in a way that she'd been trapped there all that time. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, me and my brother do have some falling outs as teenagers, but I never accused him of being evil. So.
I'm an only child, so maybe that's why I was like, this is suspicious. Like, I don't know.
Yes, yeah, same. The crystals were cool. I really want to do more things like that. Like I've been reading like little bits of it. And my friend, I asked Elizabeth Sagewood, who is really into witchcraft and Wicca, what book I should read, and she said Witchcraft for Dummies, and I was like, should I be insulted? She said no, it's a really good book. Like it's a good introduction if you're curious and want to read up. So I haven't ordered it yet, but I did have a little laugh that she'd like call me a dummy, but I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure she didn't mean it like
knowing Elizabeth, she didn't mean that.
She did not. No.
Yeah, that would be so awesome. Like because she is young enough that her power may not have activated yet. So maybe like she could be one of the future sitters. She would be excellent. Like she would just everybody else is freaking out and she's like really calm.
Would organize them all. Yeah.
She's learned all the spells.
Right away, she was a favorite character, just like her personality, like, but she's so young. I was like, I love her for some reason.
Yeah, she needs to be part of the Scooby Gang.
Yeah, she does. Witchcraft for Dummies is a good overview. See, it isn't like that I'm a dummy, so we're all fine. Okay, this has been a lovely discussion. I feel like we've covered most of the things I wanted to. So I just wanted to ask you if you have any recommendations. I'm going to start. Georgia Bowers wrote a really cool book called Mark of the Wicked, which is about a girl who, when she does magic, there are consequences and it leaves marks on her skin. And it's more the dark, like the craft style. And it even references the craft, I think, in it. it's the craft style witches. It's really good. And then the other end of witches, there's Hex by Julia Tufts, where a girl starts a period and her powers are tied to her menstrual cycle, and it kind of makes her more powerful. And she as she goes through the book, she's like, it's about kind of owning her feminism and her periods and stuff like that. And it's really funny and like a really modern take on witchcraft. So those are the two ends of the witchy extremes, I think. How about you, Andrina? Did you think of any recommendations, or have I stolen yours? Because they're in the same sort of like friendly circle.
Well, I definitely agree with both of those. Yeah. But also, I was thinking Big Bad Me by Ashley McLaughlin, and because that's real strong Buffy vibes with lots of fun banter and Scooby Gang, and obviously it's werewolves rather than witches, but it was just that feel of and small town setting as well, lots of supernatural goings on, and of course Mina.
Thank you. I mean, I did that did cross my mind, so I was reading it. I hope people who read this like my books too.
No, but I was thinking like she's gonna think I'm just shoehorning it in, but I really that is the one that I would point people to if they enjoyed this. So
thank you. And yeah, that's a really good call. Big Bad Me is awesome. As I was reading it, I was like, I want to be friends with this author, and I know I'm friends with Ashlyn because I like made her my friend. But yeah, I got to read a proof of that really early on because I think somebody thought, oh, she likes Buffy, and it's got a definite
laugh out loud, some of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Really good dialogue. Oh yeah, and Kev's saying we did it for book club. When did we do it? Was it last? Yeah, Kev's just looking now. Kev might pop it in the description if we are lucky. Yeah, I mean, hard same, but it's nice. Yes, I feel like the recommendations have been strong thus far. Like there's some. Oh, November. Kev said if you want to check it out, the Big Bad Me discussion, just be mindful that we did spoil it in the spoilery discussion. So if you want to check it out, read the book first. How about you, Chloe? Do you have any recommendations that you think fans of this book would like?
So in just like a witchy YA, not particularly, because I didn't read a lot of that stuff when I was kind of reading YA books as a proper YA audience, like when I was a teenager. Yeah. But one that I did read that gives me the similar vibes is Angel by L.A. Weatherly.
Oh, and yeah.
It's like a half angel, angels are taking over the world, they're actually bad kind of vibe. So there's nothing really similar, just for some reason it gives me the same vibes. I'm not sure why. And then one I've read that's definitely higher YA but has the witchy element is The Merciless by Danielle Vega. Very weird, very gory, but at the same time it's teenagers who think they're very powerful, so really random stuff. But yeah,
gory and was like, Salt, I need to read that. What was that one called? The Merciless.
I can send you the Goodreads or whatever. Cool. But it's very dark and disturbing, but at the same time gives me like teenagers taking over the world and being really powerful kind of vibes. But yeah, I say I read everything. I think witchy YA might be the smallest subgenre of what I read, so I need to read more.
Yeah, what you just said made me think of it. Is it called Chronicle, Kev? That film about 3 teenage boys who get powers? No, so I think it's called
Chronicle. It's shaky camera.
Yeah, I think it is that. It's 3 teenage boys who they find something and it gives them powers, and it's just such an authentic representation of what teenage boys would do if they got powers. Like they do, and teenage girls probably too. Like they're doing really silly stuff with the powers and like throwing stuff around, and then it kind of delves in this dark direction of like the corrupting influence of power with some of them as well, and it's really good. It has like YA book
style.
Yeah, it's like Blair Witch style filming, but it starts quite fun and light, but then it goes really dark, and it's very good. Witch Please, that's a good title. I've just read an adult witchy book that I really liked too, called Payback's a Witch.
I've seen that one, yeah.
Yeah, really fun. How about you, Kelsey? Do you have any recommendations that people might like?
Well, first, I want to agree with Andrina and say that I wanted to say Mina as well, because honestly, it's great 90s vibes. It actually takes place in the 90s, and I'm not just saying this to inflate your ego, Amy. I do think it actually reads older YA, which I like. I kind of like more leaning towards a little bit darker, but I still enjoyed this book, though. I don't want to bash this book because I had a thoroughly good time, especially with the second half. But other than Mina, I do have a couple of nostalgic YAs that are great if people love 90s nostalgia in their YA. A more older reading YA book that just came out recently last year, Autumn Crow High, Fresh Hell. It's the first in the series by Cameron Chaney. Super amazing, great lore that's going to be explored. It's going to be a first in the series. Autumn Crow, the town that the story takes place in, it's Halloween all year round. But the first book takes place in August, so it's not Halloween. But you get descriptions of the town and of the leaves and of the weather. And so although it's August, you still get a little bit of the Halloweeny vibes that you might like if you do love witchy stuff or Halloweeny stuff like I do. So I that was like my favorite read of last year. So I have to tout that book. Cameron Chaney, he's amazing. He's got a YouTube channel. Please check him out. Really more people should be checking him out, especially YA lovers, because he's an expert on horror, vintage horror, YA. He knows a lot of those types of things, and he loves nostalgia. So that's my number one rec. But other than that, I do think if you're looking for even darker than Autumn Crow High, Fresh Hell, The Good Demon by, I think it's Jimmy Karajolis. It is a possession horror story, but where the girl has just been exorcised and she misses her demon. And there is hints of black magic towards the end of the book. So it's not just about possession. There is magical elements. I loved that book. That is the book that catapulted me into being an adult book lover, because I was not a book lover growing up. So we're talking about 90s nostalgia. Did I actually read a lot in the 90s? No, sadly, no. I missed out on actually living these reading experiences when all these books were popular. Like Goosebumps, I barely read them in the 90s. I read them more now, which is so ironic and weird, but I was into 90s Nickelodeon actually in the 90s. So that part of me was actually loving that as a child. But The Good Demon, that was the first book. I just looked up a list, books that are kind of like Harry Potter for adults. And for some reason, the book was on the list, even though it's not super like Harry Potter. There is some dark magic, but I don't know why that was on the list. So glad it was. I didn't know that you could read a book for enjoyment that wasn't super popular like Harry Potter, because I did read that growing up, but I thought it was a one and done. I'll just enjoy Harry Potter and Twilight, and then nothing else will really catch me. I'm not a reader, But when I found The Good Demon, I devoured it in one sitting. I'm just a random ass book can make you feel this way? What the hell? So it was a wonderful experience. Now, I don't know if everyone would think of it the same way as me. I've read a lot since then. I don't know if I reread it, if I would feel as strongly about it, but I do want to shout it out because it's super unique in its concept, and I never hear anyone talk about it. So if you like witchy vibes or possession or both, give it a little, whirl, see if you like it. And I swear I'm going to stop yammering. One last suggestion. If you do like witch books and you're okay with reading adult witchy books, I would suggest Slewfoot by Brom. Also, if you do read it, I would suggest getting the physical copy from the library, because Brom does his own illustrations and they're beautiful. It's kind of historical, so it takes place way back in the day, settlement times with witch trials and stuff, but it is so well written, and if you love witchy stuff, it could be right up your alley.
I keep looking at it and thinking I really need to try a Brom book because they look so cool. Did he write a Krampus book too?
That's even better. I like Krampus even better than Slewfoot, but I was I'll just mention the witchy book. But both were 5 stars. Krampus was amazing, and both have great audiobooks. But like I said, if you do the audio, I would try to read along just to see the beautiful illustrations, even if it's just from the library. I'm sorry I talked so long. I'm done.
I've added all of those to my list now, so don't apologize.
I hope you like them. Let me know what you think of them. I'd love to hear.
We love the enthusiasm. This is why we're here. We're all here because we love books, and it makes me so happy to hear somebody kind of thought they weren't a reader. That's what I used to try and do when I was a teacher. Kids would say, I'm not a reader, I don't read, and I was challenge accepted. I'm going to find something that you will read and that you will love. And I never I don't think there was ever a kid where I didn't manage to find something, whether it was horrible histories or something, or I'd start them off on these Beast Quest books that are really simple, fantasy quest type books. but they're just gateway books and they get people reading. So yeah, we love it. Never stop, Kelsey, like being enthusiastic about books. This is what we need.
I just get so excited, like talking about my journey for so long. I was like, I wish I was a reader, but I'm not. But now I am. Anybody can do it. I am convinced anybody could become a reader now.
Oh, that's so lovely. I'm going to have to read that book now in honor of like your reading shit.
I hope it's been a long time, like I said, so I can't wait to see what you guys think if you do.
Rachel Griffin is an author whose like name pops up, and I haven't read any of her books, and I feel like I really need to. Hi, thank you. We are just finishing up a chat about the Babysitters Coven. So if you haven't read it, then you might not know what we're talking about. We have just about finished. The Covenant is a witchy film as well. That's got so many famous people in it. Actually, I'm trying to remember like who is in it, but that's a really good like trashy. Is it early 2000s horror film? I think. Yes, we love your enthusiasm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like it maybe is. Like Kev's convinced that there's one of these films who's got Tim Riggins from Friday Night Lights in, who I have such a crush on. I think I don't know. Kev's like coming at us with the recommendations too. If Kev thinks of it, like I'll mention it. That is awesome. Like I did the same thing with Kev. Kev just reads my books though. That's the only thing. Like he just reads my books over and over again.
My husband doesn't even read my books.
Honestly, the authors I interview generally say that like Kev is a one-off because I don't think that authors always marry bookish people. So I think generally we don't.
I married a computer programmer.
But somehow I managed to convince him that like teen vampire books are a good thing. That's very cool.
That's
I love
lovely.
that. See, this is I love the fact that anybody can just literally pick up reading and like decide that it's the thing they want to do. Like I'm sure Nina won't mind me saying, my friend Vincenza, we just got talking about some of the YA books that I've been reading, and now she like reads the YA book club book every month, and started reading like all of our books and reading like our little group. I started like here and Catherine Foxfield and Kat Ellis, and it's just really nice when you find something that somebody loves. And her brothers, the reason I know Nina is Kev's best friends with her brother, and he started reading recently too, and it's great chatting to him every time I see him. I'm like, so what's the current book? And he's reading stuff like Jaws and Jurassic Park. So it's so lovely when you find something that just like makes your heart happy, like exactly like R.A. Morley. I think that's a nice thought to end on. Books make our hearts happy. Oh yeah. Yeah, it is the Covenant. So if anybody just wants to watch the Taylor Kitsch films, appreciate the joy that is Taylor Kitsch, then please try the Covenant. Thank you, all of you who've come on the screen. It's been so lovely to chat to you all. As usual, I feel like it's been too long since I've chatted to all of you, so it's been nice to have a catch up. Thank you everyone in the comments. It's lovely to chat about books with you. We are reading The Invocations this month, which is also a witchy book. I feel like people keep going at it with the witchy stuff at the moment, which is very cool. I love House of Hollow by Krista Sutherland, so I'm really excited to read The Invocations. People said this one's quite dark, so I'm looking forward to getting into that if you want to read along with us. That's it for the chat tonight. Thank you everyone for watching. Hopefully I'll see you all soon. Thanks again everybody on screen. I'm just going to bring up last comment.
Thank you.
Super smart people, as always, have come on to chat about it. I do appreciate your contribution.
Not me.
Not me.
I should mention that Kirsty, a little bit of self-promo and Kirsty promo. Kirsty's running a vampire book club that she's just started, and they're reading the Mina books. So if anybody's thinking about reading Mina 2, they're reading Mina 2 this month. So check out, she's under Kirsty ES. If you want to have a look into that. Thanks, Paula. And thanks, everyone. Hopefully I'll catch you all soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.